secretaries to stay on top of it, and he gave money to the people for their schools and for their projects if they would stay on top of it. And we got up about 3 or 4 percentage points. That was as far as we could go. And then everybody got tired, and then the thing just kind of fizzled out. But it did work, but it was hard work. But this is going to be easier work because now it's all digitized. And not only that, but it's a pilot program. If we don't like it, we just say no. So we're not bound for 3 years. So if it doesn't work for us, we can get out of it. And that's always a good thing. Pilot program is a magic word, magic words. 2 words.
We will provide an update to the board, and Mr. Hanson, you can catch it from home, but it'll be before February 15th.
I
he's
can't
gonna
watch
spend
this
his
because we
time.
have satellite. We don't have.
You can watch it on YouTube in a couple of days. We'll put it
Okay.
on YouTube.
None of us have any excuses anymore.
All right.
Well, I actually wasn't, really sold on it before because I felt like it's more money going out to, outside people trying to help, and I thought we were doing pretty well. But I think that it seems like it's going to be something we can try for a while, and I'm willing to go along to hope it'll come up a little bit. But I will say that at the back-to-school night, that the principal of Garden Village, Mrs. McLaughlin, anyway, I call her Mary Beth.
That works.
But anyway, she gave a really good pep talk to the parents. But you're right. Those might, like Melinda said,
Those are the
people that come to those kind of events are not the people that keep their kids out of school. So, so it's, okay. But I do think I hear what you're saying, and I think it really, everybody has to have the message out there, and we have to make it so. I agree with Mr. Vidalis that if you started really emphasizing it with kindergarten, I think it stays. The more they learn, isn't there a saying, you learned everything you had to learn by kindergarten? But it is something that once we get them started, it'll move on.
Yeah, we should really try.
Exactly, we'll try. And if pilot program is not working, then we can save the money next time. Okay,
Right.
so let's go for it.
Well, the only thing I was just saying, if the only 2 things I remember from kindergarten are snacks and naps, and, that may in fact cover everything you need to know.
No. Today-
Nowadays, kids don't get naps, although I
No.
think we still encourage snacks.
Also look both ways and hold hands and don't yell.
I have to say that my 3rd child in kindergarten was reading a book by Christmas time, because I think the teachers in kindergarten no longer just play and learn how to, paint and all that. They're doing
I
some
went
of
to
the
kindergarten a
curriculum.
long time ago.
I know, it's okay. But I think today that they
I
work
remember
hard.
my kindergarten in Copenhagen, and I got spanked a lot.
Well, in those days, we all got spanked if we deserved it.
Okay, well, then I would like to make a motion that we approve the contract in the amount of $52,500 with School Innovations and Achievement for Attention to Attendance Services and Software Agreement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Scheduling annual board governance and board progress conversation session.
Yes. So it does sound a little bit early to do this. However, as we found out one year, CSBA facilitators do get booked up rather rapidly. And so I want to be able to at least set a date now, and at least those of us who will be around can mark it on our calendars, and we can make it clear to any new board members at least 3 months in advance that the date has already been set
Is it-
for this.
Is the 22nd a 3-day weekend?
No, it's the weekend before that.
Okay, just.
Okay, that was actually going to be my question. I was trying to
'cause
figure out here on my calendar.
sometimes some of the people want to go away, so, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Are any of these
They look good, either,
on Saturdays, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
right now I have nothing on my calendar for February, so.
Yeah,
Let me know.
I haven't begun to schedule anything that far out, so I actually have no opinion. It could
Yeah.
be either one.
Same here.
I guess Hans has no opinion because he won't be there.
I won't be here.
So you want to just tell her either one?
She is available on both days, So I think if you guys want to choose the 22nd, or, the 22nd is at the end of the President's Week, so maybe the 8th would be better.
The 8th would probably be
Okay.
better, yeah.
Yep.
Leaves me
Okay.
freedom to take my kids somewhere, get them out of the house.
We don't have to vote on it, do we?
Yeah.
Well,
But you know what might happen is getting new board members on, they may have to vote on it again.
no, we just tell them.
They, yeah. It'll be their first
Set the
assignment.
date.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I'll make the motion then to schedule our annual board governance and board progress conversation session for February 8th, 2014.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. I'm sorry, I forgot we needed to actually make a motion on that.
Yeah. Curriculum and instruction, acceptance of donations, and I'll just go ahead and say thanks to Aramark for their $1,500 to be used for the free and reduced lunch application promotion campaign, and Westlake.
That would be for
That's
Westlake
from
School.
Hands-on Bay Area, actually. It's
All
a-
right.
Yeah.
So hands-on Bay Area, $21,190 in in-kind donations, materials and supplies for various projects done around the school campus to beautify and improve the site arranged by Hands-on Bay Area with volunteers from Google and Seagate. And so we're always appreciative of any donations and any volunteers that help out our schools.
That's huge. Many thanks.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the acceptance of the donations as listed.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Standardized testing and reporting, STAR program results. Is this the last time? For STAR anyway.
So it's that time of year again where I'm going to share the STAR report results, and as you just said, there's a lot of drama going on right now in our state government, and I'll get to that a little bit later. So this may or may not be the last time I talk about STAR as the our measure of student achievement, but we will be sharing some sort of measure of student achievement every year. Whether it's STAR, I don't know.
Right.
So I'll get to that.
All
But
right.
to give you a background of STAR, because that is the data that we have two measures in our state. One is API, or Academic Performance Index, and that is a state structure to show progress of student learning. And it's all these different data points. You get points up to 1,000 for students that are scoring far below basic that move up to basic. You get a certain number of points. So it's out of 1,000. If you get to 800, that's kind of the threshold. There's also the Adequate Yearly Progress, or AYP, and that's the federal accountability structure, and that's for the percent of students that meet proficiency. And that's through No Child Left Behind. And this year we were supposed to meet 89% proficiency, and next year, or 13-14, this year meaning 12-13, was 89%, and the goal was 100% by the end of this year. But we're not sure what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty because of the transition to Common Core, and there is a bill in the Assembly, actually it was just passed by the Senate today, to suspend the STAR, or the CST test for this year, and have every district pilot the Smarter Balanced without this kind of accountability measures for 1 year. So this House is supposed to vote on Friday. The governor is said to be supportive of it, but the federal government is not happy with the state of California and is threatening some sanctions, financial possible sanctions. So we're not sure what's going to happen. We're not sure how it's going to play out. But right now we're just kind of watching, and it's actually kind of exciting to see what's happening. So, but for now, we do have some data to look back to see how we did. So not only with AYP to reach that 89 or 100% threshold, they do give an alternative way to measure success, and that's called Safe Harbor. And that's if you move 10% of your students who are not already proficient into proficient. So if you have 60% proficient and 40% not proficient, 10% of the 40 is 4%, and you add that to your 60, and that's your Safe Harbor. So you would need to get 64% as an example. So here's our results. Looking back in 2013, we maintained growth. We didn't gain too much, but we didn't lose any either. we had a pretty good spike in 2012, and so we were able to get really close to that and maintain it. Overall, we did see an increase in math achievement, and if you look back 10 years from 2003 to now, we had a 21% district-wide increase, at least 21% district-wide increase in English language arts and math. And I'll show you some graphs on that. And we really attribute this to, alignment of curriculum, consistency to program implementation, progress monitoring, making sure our students are learning and checking back as we go. And then, of course, the work of our instructional leadership teams at the schools and at the district to just constantly focus on student learning. So you can see last year we had 10 schools that reached that 800 threshold in that academic performance index, and our goal was 11 schools in the district, and we met that goal. So we have 11 schools this year. You can see the lighter blue bar is last year's scores, API, out of 1,000, and then the darker blue is this year. Garden Village joined the over 800 club. And as with the district. And you can see we have some highs and lows, but we are continuing to improve. I mean, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, we only had one school over 800, and so now we're at 11. And as Ms. Cummings mentioned earlier, Ben Franklin also had a big spike in their scores as well. Looking back at grade level successes, so just to orient you to this graph, it starts with English language arts in second grade, and then next is math in second grade, and then it goes by grade level, English language arts first, and then math. The last bar is science in fifth grade because they test science in fifth grade. So you can see that we just keep climbing every year. In science, we actually were above the state proficiency level, so even though there's been some fluctuations, we are above the state proficiency level. So I have a lot of graphs to show you, so I don't want to spend too much time, and I can answer questions and go back if you need to. For our 6th through 8th grade students, English language arts starts the graph, and then math, and then for every grade level. Once we get to 8th grade, there's science, history, algebra, and general math. You're going to see a huge spike in algebra this year, and I think a lot of that has to do with the preparing for a Common Core. As you know, this year we're not, depends on what happens with CST, but we're not actually calling the course algebra, we're calling it Common Core, 8th grade math, which includes a lot of algebra. Actually, it's more rigorous than the algebra course from the content standards before. And so if we are given the CST, all of our students would take the algebra CST, but who knows if we're going to take the CST or not. So we'll wait and see. So you can see that we are climbing as well.
General math, though, it includes algebra in it, correct? Or?
No, it's basically a lot of 7th grade standards. So this year we wanted access for all, and that's why we're doing, everyone is taking Common Core 8th grade math.
All right.
So one thing that if you would go back one slide, Ms. McCulloch, general math, we've seen a decline in general math, and the primary reason is more kids are taking algebra.
Right.
So the kids who are staying in general math tend to be the students who have more significant mathematical gaps to fill. However, when you look at our algebra scores, more kids are taking algebra every year, and our scores are getting better. So a lot of students that may not have taken algebra 3 or 4 years ago are now taking algebra and are performing very well. So our group numbers in algebra are growing, and our performance, their achievement is also improving.
That's good.
So taking a look back at our English language arts by our student group, this is our adequate yearly progress, or AYP. So that first column there is the group. And so for district-wide, last year, we had 61% of our students proficient. Our safe harbor target was 65%, and we obviously didn't meet that target. We dipped a little bit. The state, Torlakson, I think I forwarded you a press release from the state superintendent, Tom Torlakson, and the whole state had a slight dip in English language arts. And so you can see the state was 56% on their proficiency level, so we exceeded the state's proficiency level. So almost, actually, all of our subgroups had a slight dip in English language arts, but that was statewide, that was countywide too. So if we take a look at our Hispanic students, 49% was our proficiency level. You'll see our target, we didn't meet it and we dipped a little, but above the state. Our African American students, 39%, didn't meet our target, 36%. We're below the state here, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So this is an area of concern for us. ELL is English learners, English language learner, 52%, and we scored 49%, well above the state proficiency level. SWD is students with disabilities, 41% to 37%, above the state proficiency levels. SED is socioeconomically disadvantaged, 54%, slight dip at 52, still above the state levels. So I want to just show you over time all of our student groups. So all students, African American, Asian, Filipino, Hispanic, Latino, 2 or more races, English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged. You can see from 2009 on the green bar to the orange bar, this is last year, there is, for almost every student group, there is a sharp increase. Even though we weren't able to meet last year's target, there was a huge spike last year. So we were still able to maintain the growth from the year before, actually exceed the growth from 2 years prior, and then still show an increase from 5 years prior. The one student group that is not shown as much progress has been African Americans. So what is this data telling us? We are improving over time for almost all of our subgroups, our student groups. However, our African American students, they're maintaining their level of proficiency. They're not dropping, but for the most part. But we need to address this lack of growth over time. To give you a little background, I did some more digging into our student population. This population is declining, and more than 50% of the students, African American students in our district, are in the middle schools, with most of them in 7th and 8th grade. And so we are focusing our efforts on the middle schools, and as I mentioned yesterday, last night I attended the Next Level Academic Program for African American students, and this is a program that Mr. Parrish, principal of Ben Franklin, brought to the community. And it's with Dr. Jamal Cooks from San Francisco State University, and it's really talking about language and literacy and math support for African American families. And so, great turnout yesterday. The flyer was sent out to actually every school in the community, and so we're hoping to have more families participate to really just reach out and see what we can do to support our students. It's not just our district that is having this concern, it's a county-wide concern, and so we're looking into soliciting help from the county to see if there is a school district that is really reaching this population of students so that we can see what's working and how we can improve our student achievement and improve student learning.
Ms. McCulloch?
Yes.
So you just actually covered half of a question that I was going to ask. So since there's a statewide dip, are there any talks statewide about what needs to be done?
Yes, well, what needs to be done, I don't know, but what he mentioned was, so what he attributes to it is possibly the ongoing budget cuts and reductions, lack of resources because of that, and then also the transition to Common Core could have affected, we don't know.
All right.
So I think our teachers are working really hard and they're doing a great job, and it's a really challenging time right now with having 1 foot in CST, 1 foot in Common Core.
Right.
And so if they release us of the CST pressure, then that would let us jump full into Common Core. And I think that would really help our students.
So you
because
think a
Common
lot
Core
of
is-
the support or ideas on how to help will be geared towards funding and, I guess, professional development for the Common Core?
Do you mean for African American students or
State-
for
no,
everybody?
for all students.
Yeah, I think the more that we support our teachers and that will support our students. And later on, you'll see some of our next steps
All right.
that we're doing, so I'll get to that. So this is, remember I said we had 10 years, so you can see in the red graph, or the red bar is 2003, and the blue is 2013. So we did, in the last 10 years, we have seen some growth for our African American students, but just not enough compared to our other student groups. But we have, I mean, this is exciting to see, 10 years. When you look at it, when you step back and look at it, I mean, if you look 1 year to 1 year, you think, oh, we had a little dip. But if you look over 10 years, over 5 years, this district has made some significant growth. So I think everyone should be really proud of themselves for that. So we'll look at math next. Same structure, district-wide, 58% last year, didn't meet the targets. We didn't meet it, obviously, in any, as I mentioned earlier. But 58%, so we maintained and above the state average. Hispanic, 45% to 46%, so there was an increase in math. And above the state, African-American, 27 to 30, so we did see an increase there, but still below the state. English language learners, 56 to 56, we maintained, but well above state again. And students with disabilities, 41, slight dip. And these are students with special needs, IEPs, individualized education plans. But we are above the state proficiency level. And socioeconomically disadvantaged, 52, so an increase to 53 above the state. And then just to illustrate the growth that we have made, so slight growth for African American students, but still not enough. And then you can see the growth in all of our other student groups. And then over 10 years. So huge growth for our district. So,
Can I ask just,
yeah,
are those the only statistically significant subgroups we have?
yes,
Okay, that's what I thought.
yeah.
I just noticed there were a few missing.
Well, yes, but we can't necessarily report on those because the student population is so
they're
small.
below-
You could
that's- yeah.
identify who those students are, and we can't do that
Right,
for
Yeah.
confidentiality.
right.
So, areas of attention, our African-American student population, as I talked about. Our Hispanic Latino students are still lagging behind too. So even though we've seen growth, they're still lagging behind other student groups. And our English learners as well. So looking forward, our goal, not sure if this first goal is actually going to be applicable to meet our AYP for all student groups. Depends on if we have CST or not, and they don't have a measure for Smarter Balance yet. So if we still take the CST, this will be a goal for us, that we meet our adequate yearly progress, which is the proficiency level for all our student groups, especially for African Americans, Hispanic, Latino, and English learner students. And we want to continue our targeted practices, school connectedness, having students feel connected to the school and reaching out to the community. So because we're not sure about AYP, we have some other goals for ourselves, our district instructional goals. So Common Core is very rigorous. So we need to work on increasing the rigor in our schools, in our classrooms. And so one way to measure rigor is classroom quick visits. And we're going to be talking about rigor with our staff. They're already working really hard and working on rigor, but just really honing those skills and those questioning strategies for students so that students really can think critically in those higher level thinking, the depths of knowledge. So that would be one way to measure that we see an increase as we do some quick visits and as teachers observe each other, et cetera. English language arts and math benchmark assessments, we already kind of transitioned those to the Common Core. We're using some MARS tasks for the benchmark. We're using curriculum embedded unit exams or tests for the English language arts. So we're going to use that same safe harbor measure where we're going to decrease by 10% the number of students who are not proficient. So that might be one of the ways we can measure student achievement, as well as the MARS exam that happens in March. So decreasing by 10% the number of students who are not proficient. And that one is aligned to the Common Core because the writers of MARS are actually commissioned to write Smarter Balance exams. So some of our next steps, we're going to continue our preschool through 8th grade professional development for the transition. We actually had our 4th grade, half of our 4th grade teachers yesterday trained on just some instructional strategies for math, English language arts, and English language development. And so every grade level will have an opportunity to have some training this year. And we also want to, within that training, develop the understanding of instruction that leads to mastery. The previous content standards is a lot, a mile long and an inch deep. So we really want students to go deeper so that they have that mastery of the concepts. We also want to build the capacity of our administrative council, our principals, so that they can go and support teachers to support student learning by providing feedback and give support that way for student learning. With the change to Common Core, we need to make sure that we inform the community, the board, staff, on how we're going to transition. And so I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the website, but the curriculum instruction website has been updated, and it has all sorts of resources for everybody to look at on the Common Core, through newsletters, back to school night, through our instructional leadership team, staff meetings. So we want to make sure that we just blast everybody with communication on the transition to Common Core. We also are going to need new report cards. And so Melinda and I actually talked about this a little bit, and we're going to need to develop new report cards, and we want them online to get to the 21st century. And basically, since they're national standards, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are tons out there already. We just need to tweak it to our needs to fit our specific areas that we want, but it's really not going to be, I don't think, a challenging undertaking. So we're going to solicit staff help on that. And then we also need to implement technology. Common Core, as you know, the assessment is all computer adaptive. And so, but not only that, our Common Core state standards deal with 21st century learning skills. So we need to make sure our students have those skills to be college and career ready. So we need that technology in the classroom, those tools, so that students can learn how to use those tools as they progress through the grades and get into the workforce. So that we're working on as well, and we're going to be soliciting, I've already talked to Melinda about that one too, and we're going to be soliciting some feedback from staff and getting some a plan. We want to be strategic. We don't want to just go out and buy a whole bunch of hardware and software just to get it rolling. We want to be strategic and pick the right technology so that it is going to be long-lasting for us and the most effective. So if you want to take a look at the STAR reports, there's all sorts of reports for all different kinds of data you can get. And then I encourage everyone to check out the Curriculum Instruction Department website with all the information about Common Core, professional development. There's a lot going on right now. We're very busy. Any questions for me? Or I see speakers first.
Probably a few questions and comments.
Okay.
So, let me go to the speakers first.
Sure, and then come back to our
All right.
questions.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll have you come back. All right.
Okay.
So, Lori Cummings.
This was good timing for me to be here, actually. This was serendipitous. I'm one of those algebra teachers. As a matter of fact, there aren't many of us in the district. So that increase in algebra represents the hard work of about 7 individuals. And from a personal standpoint, I just would like to address the professional development we've had in the district for math over the last few years. And I was never not a fan. I liked professional development, but I was very skeptical of leaving the classroom for so many days. And over time, they kind of convinced me. And so this is now my 2nd or 3rd year I've done it, and it's really, really phenomenal professional development. And I don't say that lightly or with any sort of agenda. It's really the best I've seen. We really do strive. There's accountability. We have homework. We have to bring things back. And that goes to Bernie, that goes to Sandy, that goes to Debbie, that goes to whoever they're bringing it with. And I hope in the future that my cohorts, my colleagues in language arts and science and social studies get the same rigor in their professional development. It's not just that we're, learning things. We are held accountable to each other as well. So that really does represent a lot of hard work. And there are some people we're forgetting. Yes, I'm only 10% of the equation. I had fabulous students, and they met me every day, and I think that's part of it. This Common Core standards, the way we interact with kids, it does change the relationship between teachers and students. It's a give and a take. It's a conversation. They want to be there. They're part of it. So I'm really excited by the movement, and keep up the professional development. It's really worth your investment. It really is. Thank you. Well, I'm just glad I was here.
All right, great. Melinda Dart.
Yes. One of our coaches, too.
Thank you. Melinda Dart, AFT 3267. I think everyone knows that that this system has been flawed. A system where every child is supposed to be proficient by 2014. We never thought would work, and indeed it didn't. And schools are put in the position of Daniel Webster, where their scores went up this year, but they still got into PI because of subgroups. And that happens immeasurable times all across the state. So I think we have a new beginning here, or a new chance anyway, with the new Common Core. And the new assessments that are coming. Now is really our chance to move beyond the pressure of the high-stakes test and focus more on simply improving instruction and delivering quality education. Teachers are for accountability, but they are for accountability related to what they're actually teaching. And I would like to suggest that there are some things that may be unrelated to the actual classroom practice, but could really affect achievement, such as more enrichment, art in every middle school, classes of Spanish for native speakers in the middle schools, and smaller class sizes in the upper grades. I think all of those could make a big difference. And more collaboration time. We do have some now, but teachers need more time than they have now to talk about student needs and talk about student engagement and talk about how they can address their particular body of students at their school. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I guess the thought just occurred to me as far as more time for collaboration. Isn't that the purpose of the minimum day, so that teachers can yeah. So I don't know, just something to think about, maybe having 2 minimum days.
Still need instructional minutes, though.
Because of the instructional.
You need to, there's a required
Yeah.
minimum
Yeah.
instructional minutes. You'd have to increase the other days.
If I can just briefly address that, not to take your time. Those days have a lot of duties in them that are related sometimes to test data, and it takes a lot of time. So I guess what I'm saying is maybe less time looking at results of standardized tests and more time just actually considering the students and what they need.
You want to look at student data, but the student work.
Student work, student writing.
Because you want data,
Yeah.
because you, not just off the top of your head, but you want data, something
To go
concrete.
on,
Yeah.
Useful data.
And the purpose of the Common Core is collaborating, not to be in the silo of your classroom anymore, to collaborate, to have these professional learning communities. So that is one of the purposes.
I had 2 questions, at least one of which I actually remember. Just doing pretty well for me right now. Common Core standards and tests for science and social studies. As I understand, those haven't happened yet. Do we have any timeline on when, and what is the plan for sort of maintaining quality of education in those areas?
We don't have the assessments yet,
Uh-huh.
but there are literacy standards for science and social studies. And then science actually they just adopted the next generation science standards, which are
they did adopt the next
science
generation.
version of the Common Core.
Okay.
And so we will be providing some training actually at our Institute Day this year.
Great. That actually answers a question that my husband, who is a science educator, had about that.
Yes.
What was happening
But
between
I don't
those
know
two.
about the assessments yet.
Okay. And I still haven't remembered what the other question was, so somebody else can ask.
Well, my questions were actually answered by Melinda.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for the presentation, and I would like to say that I think we need to spend lots of time talking about some of the suggestions that we're hearing. And thank you, Melinda, for the suggestions. I've always said that we need to enrich more in the arts, okay? And we seem to have been getting away from some of that. A child who has something else that they're good at, whether it be sports, whether it be art, whether it be music, or even an enriched class of something that they're interested in, only brings everything together. And I think I've seen for the last so many years us taking things away. And we need to focus on bringing something back, or even developing on some new ideas we have. But we need to do it not, I don't know how to explain it, as an educational tool, not as a budget tool, or not as a negotiable thing. I think we need to sit down and say, what can we do with some of the funds that we have that we're going to enrich the lives and education of our children?
With electives.
Yes, and we've taken away all the sewing and cooking that we used to have for some kids that could be their field later on. We've taken away a lot of the things for industrial arts stuff that, we didn't have big stuff, but we did have where you can make some little wood stuff. And we took things away that some of the children that will not be focused on a career in college or higher other kind of careers, but can make a good living on something that we can get them motivated in the younger grades. And if we don't do that, then we're failing. Because I know that when you have something extra, the child will work harder in other grades so they can be in the extracurricular or extra programs, or electives, as you called it. Something extra for the child to feel that they're really good at something, and only helps in all the other stuff. And it's time that we looked at that.
And they like to go to school because of it.
Exactly, and they feel proud of themselves, and they'll do better in other classes. And I will address one other thing, because it's an idea, and it's not that's on the agenda, but I really think we have to look at smaller class sizes for the upper grades. I think it's something that we need to look at. So I'm not saying it can happen right away, but we need to look at it and find out what can we do to try to make it happen. So I just wanted to say that.
All right. I just wanted to say, congratulations to our hardworking teachers, and also the curriculum and instruction department, and the coaches especially, and all the, even the organizations and foundations that have supported our professional development. And I think specifically, we've gotten a lot of support for math from Silicon Valley Community Foundation as well.
Absolutely.
And that's it. Thanks.
Sorry, it's because Melinda did it.
It's all right. Business and financial procedures.
All
Fiscal
right.
year 2012-13 unaudited actuals. Is that up to 15 minutes, or is it going to take 15?
Usually when
she can be faster than
money, it
15
takes the
minutes.
whole time.
Okay, your time's running out. Oh, so-
They should be telling us.
Right.
Clock is ticking.
Another year ended, and another year begun.
Yep.
So,
2 minutes. Oh, no.
the unaudited actuals. The unaudited actuals are the district's financial reports for fiscal year 12-13. They are that reflect the transactions from July 1st, 2012 through closing of June 30th, 2013, although it takes a few months to close it. It doesn't just close automatically. School boards are required to approve the unaudited actuals by September 15th. Then the external auditors will come in. They'll audit the financial records and provide an opinion. And then it is required to go to the state, be submitted to the state by December 15th. And then the audited financial statements will come back to the board for final approval in December or January, when everybody can fit it into the schedules. So this slide here, it's showing just a real brief summary. It shows all the different funds that we have. And it shows the general fund with the unrestricted and restricted portions broken out. What we began the 12-13 year with, so July 1st, 2012, what our fund balance was, our total revenues and transfers in, our total expenditures and transfers out, and that will leave us with the end balance for the 12-13 year, which we started this year with. So I come to you a couple times during the year, and part of it is the first interim and the second interim. You approve the adopted budget, you approve the first interim, which shows the changes, the second interim, which shows the changes, and then the unaudited actuals here. And from one report to the next, I show you what the changes are from, what we've done to the budget. And so what I'm showing you here is what the expected end balance, fund balance would be at the second interim, the period of the second interim. And then the difference between what we ended up with and the second interim. So these are how it changed. And what I'll be explaining to you, basically, is the changes that we have in the unrestricted general fund, and then what these end balances are in the general fund unrestricted and the general fund restricted. But before I leave this page, I just want to point out a couple things, because obviously you see there's a big amount here. At the second interim, we did not know if we were going to be selling the bonds within this school year, within the last school year, I'm sorry. So, and that was as of January 31st last school year. And so since then, obviously, we sold the bonds, and we have some expenditures here too. And so our end balance is $17 million, higher than we expected it to be. So we've got the $27 million. It's because of the bond funds. And down here, where we have it lower, the reason for it being lower is this is where the money from the sale of Columbus will be coming in. And as you know, that hasn't come in yet. And we, at second interim, we thought perhaps maybe $1 million would come in when we extended some deadline dates. So anyway, that's just showing that that's going to come in, that's going to change, and then this number won't be $3. Yes, that's actually $3. So move on, and so I told you I was going to explain certain parts. And so what this is here is just the fund balance and from the general fund, restricted and unrestricted combined, and how that fund balance is broken out. This number here are these two numbers put together. Okay? So they're combined. We have our 5% reserve for economic uncertainty. We have our revolving cash, prepaid expenditures, small amounts that sometimes we have to prepay for, maybe in services and such. Other designations, and I will show you on another slide what this is, and our unappropriated amount. There's nothing to show on the unappropriated amount. That is just what we have available. So for the general fund unrestricted, this is the amount. And then we have the restricted portion, almost $1 million, and I'll be breaking that out as well. So our total general fund end balance is just under $20 million. Here's a pie of how it all looks. Here's our unappropriated amount, our other designations, which I'll go through a little bit later. Our restricted fund balance, I'll go through that later. This is just simply a 5% reserve. This 5% is not 5% of this whole thing. It's 5% of our expenditures for the year. And then this little sliver here of just little tiny things that we need to make 100% of our fund balance here. Okay, so now we're on to the unrestricted general fund. And in that first slide, I showed you how we changed since the second interim, the 1.3 million. So I will show you what that is. It's made up of these changes. Here's a 1.3 million. Additional revenues of 117,000. Decrease in expenditures, 760,000. And a decrease of contributions to restricted programs of 658,000. These will be broken down in the following slides. So first, we have the revenues. The revenue limit decreased actually a little bit because we had about 5.5 ADA too many in our calculations. Of course, we don't know what that's going to be until P2. And so we adjust it, the P2, which is in April. It doesn't, since the second interim, April is quite a ways away. But next year, with the new attention to attendance, maybe this won't be like that, you know. And if it is, it's because we've budgeted a lot more. So that should be beneficial to us. Federal revenues came in less only because of the MAW funds. The MAW funds, they held back on payment. And because we only recognize the MAW funds when we receive them, we don't set up an accounts receivable. So we don't recognize the revenue and set up an accounts receivable. But these monies we're going to be getting, this $300,000. And then state revenues came in higher, almost $93,000. Increase in lottery and also some mandated cost revenues. A lot of other little things all over the place. And then our local revenues, we're still getting the settlement funds from the Lehman Brothers settlement from the investment that we lost. And again, it's just a fraction of what we have lost, but we are getting some funds back. Charter oversight fees. Big one here is the donations. You'll kind of see some of that later on in some end balances. And lease income came in higher as well. So you add all these, subtract these two out, add these together, and you have an additional revenues, actually a decrease in revenues of $118,000. However, we have a decrease in expenditures of $760,000. The reason for that is our final teacher salaries came in below our budget, and we budgeted excess substitute budget, which is really good. That means the teachers are here. We're not subbing out as much, but we always want to make sure that when we come to the end of the year that we didn't have under budget for the substitutes. We'd rather have it over budgeted and be happy about it. Also in basically the same kind of thing in the classified had excess substitute budgets and excess extra pay and overtime, and so that ended up being an $83,000 to our benefit that we didn't have to pay out. And of course the benefits that go along with it. Now, and that full amount is not benefits just for this. It is the benefits that go along with it. However, also we have the retiree benefits, the health benefits that are in there, and we always budget that a little bit higher than about 4 people higher than we expect, so that again we don't have to come to you with bad news. We'd rather come to you with good news. And then also Social Security versus the Apple plan. The Apple plan is just a lower percentage that's being paid instead of Social Security. It's a choice some employees have. And the IRC 125 Flex plan, there's no taxes based on that, so it decreases this amount here. Supplies. So supplies and the services here, this is where a lot of carryover from the sites are, like the SIP carryover, site donations, site allocations. So they're holding on to funds for the next year. Maybe they got something planned. But every year